Hey friends, I'm Emily, the pastor at the McConnellsburg United Presbyterian Church.
And I'm Peter, the youth pastor at the McConnellsburg United Methodist Church.
Here we are on December 8th, well on our journey towards Christmas. If you remember from this past Sunday, whether from church or from one of our videos, you'll remember that we are talking about preparing the way of the Lord this week.
That's right.
The scriptures were from Isaiah and Mark at the Presbyterian Church, and I think you guys read Matthew. Yesterday's video talked about preparing our homes. And today's video sort of goes along with that because we're making an ornament. We're making a craft. You guys liked yesterday's craft so much. But we're incorporating the element of preparing our hearts and minds as well. The way we're going to do that is recognizing that as we fold this origami star, we are flattening out those mountains and hills that Isaiah talks about. And I said, remind us of the sin and everything we have built up between ourselves and God. And here in Advent, Isaiah encourages us to smooth those out. We are to get rid of that sin and welcome Christ back into our lives. So as we fold this origami star, I want you to think about that, flattening out the mountains and the hills, smoothing out the rough places that separate us from God as we move towards Christmas. In the inside of the star, before we are at our final fold, we're going to write a prayer so that it stands as a reminder for this way that we have worked to prepare our hearts and minds leading up to Christmas. Peter's going to share this craft with us in just a second, but I do want to say that this craft is pretty intense. It takes a good bit of dexterity, so if you would prefer an easier craft with a similar theological message, you can either go back to yesterday's video where we made a 3D snowflake, or you can make just a regular plain white paper snowflake. You can find instructions online for how to make those. And instead of thinking about it in terms of flattening out our sin, we can think about making snowflakes as cutting out those places, removing the sin and the things that separate us from God in Christmas, to prepare the way of the Lord in our hearts and minds. Now I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and he's going to teach us how to make these stars.
All right, let's get to it. I'm going to take this normal 8.5 by 11 printer paper, and we are going to take a corner and fold it down. Now the excess paper that you see, you don't need that. If you cut it off, you'll have a square. Okay, so now if you unfold it again, you should have a square. Let's go ahead and turn this into a pentagon. First, we're going to take our square and we're going to fold the bottom up to the top. Okay, so now you should have a taco. It is open to the top. You're going to bring the bottom corner, let's say the bottom left corner, up, unfold it, and the next is to do the opposite fold. Open that fold up again, and you should have what looks like an X on one side of the paper. The next step, bring that bottom right corner to the middle of the X. Take that corner that's in the X, and you're going to fold it out to the right edge. Now, without unfolding the fold you just made, you're going to bring the bottom left corner right up alongside the pre-existing edge of what I think looks like an ice cream cone here. Turn your paper over to bring the left and right edges together. You should be left with, again, what kind of looks like a ice cream cone full of all kinds of, I don't know what, chips or something like that. All these like triangles sticking out of the top. And you just have to cut along that edge right there. Okay, so now that you've got your pentagon, if you have special paper, make sure that it's nice side down because that's going to be the outside of your star. So the first thing that you're going to do now that you have a pentagon is fold it in half at each point. The next step is to bring the bottom up, folding it evenly upward until the two bottom corners have met one of the creases that is going out toward a point. Once you've done that, you're going to unfold it, rotate it, and do it again for each of the bottom sides. Okay, so next you're going to completely unfold your pentagon. You're going to take your left end of your pentagon and fold it back the way you just had. Grab the lower corner from this flap you just folded, and you're going to pull it up and out to the left until the bottom edge is also in its crease. And just like everything else we've been doing, you're going to rotate it and repeat for each point. These newest folds we just made, if you just pinch each of them up to make sure they're creased nicely, it's going to help a lot.
I'm going to pause Peter right there in the middle of our star making. So now it's time to write our prayer in this star. As we prepare our hearts and our minds for Jesus to come on Christmas, this star is going to help us do that by acknowledging the ways that we need to smooth out those mountains and hills. So just as we've been smoothing out all of these folds along this way, and it's been a lot of folds, then we are going to help smooth out our rough places by writing a prayer right here, either in the middle on the inside of all of the folds we've just made, or on the outside. You will be able to see your prayer somewhat if you write it on the outside. Okay, now that we've smoothed out some of our rough places with this prayer, it's time to finish our star.
This next part, it is a little tricky. Take the parts of the paper that are folding upward, pinch all of the corners, and as you do that, you'll see that everything is twisting to the right. Let it do that, and let all of the folds come together, and hopefully your star will fall right into place. If you've done it right, you should have a bit of a pentagon look on each side of the star. We're going to turn to the side with the bigger pentagon on it. We're going to grab the point of the pentagon and fold it into the dead center of the pentagon, which is going to be making the points of your star half as wide. Once you do that fold, you're going to rotate it and do it to the next side. The last fold requires you to kind of pull it out of the first point that you made. So just be gentle, fold your fifth tip, and then push the excess paper that's still in the way back down into the first tip that you made. And once you do, you should have a beautiful star. You can put this on the mantle, sit it on a bookshelf, hang it on your tree.
And it will help us remember the way that we are preparing ourselves to welcome our Lord, just like we prepare our homes as well.
We hope you had a good time, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.